BMW, we need to have a serious conversation. First you had the i4 M50, then the iX M60, now the M70. At this rate, by 2030, you'll have the M100, and by 250, who knows? But let's focus on this one. New kidney grille, new lights, more power, more range, and wait for it. They finally fixed the seats. More bolster support, more thigh support, and for the first time, M Sport seats in the iX. So did BMW just slap a bigger number on the badge? Or is this the best BMW iX yet? Let's find out. Whew! This car is a rocket! My God! 3.45, so 3.45 right there with the new iX M70 650 horsepower. But of course, it's not all about straight line performance, but also about cornering, because BMW touts this one as an M performance car, so it has been dialed up compared to the base models to be a little bit sportier. Of course, replacing the iX M60, you're expected to get a little bit more, and you are getting a little bit more. And let's start with that. 650 horsepower, you're still getting the same amount of torque, 811. Of course, you can use the boost mode to accelerate a little bit faster when needed. Now let's talk about the driving experience. So once again, we're gonna start with the comfort mode so we can see the new suspension setting, because I was told by an engineer earlier today that just like all the new BMWs, this one has a wider gap in between comfort and sport. A lot of customers were complaining about the iX M60 maybe being a little bit too stiff as a daily driver, so BMW decided to soften up the suspension just by altering the software. There are no hardware changes in the suspension. I have to say, I didn't think that I'm gonna miss this round steering wheel this much. I got used to the hexagonal shape, it didn't bother me too much, but honestly, if you're cornering, this round steering just feels great in your hands. It's got that nice thickness that you're getting from BMW steering wheels. The feedback and the inputs are exactly what you expect. I mean, nothing has really changed compared to the iX M60. This car is meant to be more of a family SUV than a car that you're gonna take on the track. And of course, the steering reflects that as well. You are getting decent feedback from the road. And the car, it's exactly what you expect. As you can see right here, I'm not going too fast, but it just rotates nicely. It's very comfortable. Of course, it's a heavy car and you can feel that, but the balance, it's quite good on the iX. On these stretches of road, you can always use the B mode. So I'm in the B mode right now, which is the one pedal fill. So essentially, you don't have to stress the brakes too much. Lift off and the car will slowly come to a stop or will slow you down when needed. Now, if you're not used to the one pedal fill, you might want to switch into the D mode, like right now. And essentially, you're gonna take away that motion sickness that some people are getting from that one pedal feel. And right now, you just have to control the car with the brake pedal a little bit more. Naturally, you can adjust that brake regen. It's got the same modes as before: adaptive, low, medium, and high. There are no changes when it comes to the brake regeneration in this car. Let's talk about the air suspension. Same as before, there are no hardware changes. The only change is in the software stack. I was told that BMW wanted once again to enhance the comfort in the comfort mode, just like with newer BMWs. And at the same time, for people that are looking for the ultimate sportiness in their iX M70, they gave the sport mode a more aggressive touch. And the aggressiveness is not just in the suspension, it's also in the accelerator. So the travel in the paddle has been changed a little bit. So essentially, when you floor that paddle, it will take off a lot faster, a lot sooner than it did in the M60, which honestly, I think it's mind-blowing, because I felt that the M60 was a ridiculously fast car. Even though the recent press release said that the facelift comes with a new hydraulic rear axle bearing, I actually learned today that the change actually took place in July 2023 production. So essentially, if you've had the iX since then it does come with the new hydraulic rear axle bearing. All right, so let's do a bit of dynamic driving here. So you can see, I mean, car is so fast. I mean, you just have to touch that paddle a little bit and it simply takes off. There's some really nice roads here in Spain. I always love coming to Spain because you get to enjoy this beautiful weather and also the beautiful roads. And there is a little bit of traffic today, so I'm not gonna push the car like a maniac, which I never do. Of course, you are getting the iconic sound. You've just heard that. You can turn it off if it bothers you. It does change based on the driving mode that you're in. And speaking of the driving mode, let's put it in sport. So we're gonna go to sport. And right now, everything gets dialed up. I can feel the steering be a little bit heavier. Suspension stiffen up quite a bit. Actually, the entire car feels stiffer, more dynamic, sharper in many ways. It's a lot more composed on the road. I mean, turning in, I can feel that suspension doing the work. The dampers are definitely stiffer in this mode. And I guess that's exactly what BMW wanted to offer. Once again, if you're looking for the ultimate daily driver, go with the comfort mode. The car will be more tolerable, I would say. But then if you want to have some fun and you do have a chance to go on some of these back roads, absolutely go for the Sport or Sport Plus. Naturally, performance is just one aspect of the iX M70. The second one, it's really the battery updates that comes with the facelifted iX. Just like the base model and the middle model, the 45 and the 60, the M70, it's also getting a larger battery. There are two figures to share though. US has a different net capacity and Europe has a different net capacity, even though it's the same battery. I asked why, and apparently it's got something to do with the cycles and how it's been measured as far as the aging of the battery, so on and so forth. But essentially it's really the same battery. There is no difference between the European spec and the US spec. So 112.8 kilowatts hour, that's the US capacity, and then you have 108.9 kilowatts hour for the European spec. The range increase, it's not as significant as it is on the 45 and on the 60 model, mostly because the iX M70, it's a little bit heavier due to the battery pack. So on the EPA standard, you're getting 302 miles compared to 285 before, and then on the WLTP, you're getting 600 kilometers of range. Both these figures are quoted with 21-inch wheels and tires. Speaking of the tires, there are new tires fitted to the iX facelift. They have better rolling resistance, and of course that helps with the efficiency of the car. Let's start with the one update that makes the biggest difference when it comes to efficiency, about 1/3 of the overall improvement compared to the previous iX. And that's the silicon carbide inverters, which makes the power transfer a lot more efficient than before. There are also new friction optimized wheel bearings, which adds about 3 kilometers of range on the WLTP compared to the outgoing model. And then you have the A-label ready tire. And lastly, you're also getting about 3 kilometers of extended range on the WLTP cycle thanks to the new and more efficient headlights. Charging capabilities are quite important when it comes to electric cars, and unfortunately the iX M70 continues to get just 195 kilowatts. Essentially you're charging from 10 to 80% in about 34 minutes. I did press the BMW engineers to explain a little bit more about the charging curve. Apparently there is a small delta compared to the M60, but in the end I was told that the overall charging capability and times are pretty much the same as before. There is one small caveat though. Apparently the heat pump can now also be used to precondition the battery. So essentially, using the motor and the heat pump, you can precondition the battery a little bit better than before. And essentially that's going to help you charge a little bit faster. How much faster? I'm not sure, but I was told that that's one improvement that they feel like it's gonna make the biggest difference when it comes to charging. We'll have to test that in real life, especially in cold weather situations, and we'll give you more update on that as we live with the BMW iX in the future. With the facelifted BMW iX models, you can now turn off the DSC. So if you want to have some fun sliding, especially in the winter, you can absolutely do this right now with the car. Now let's talk about the biggest update, in my opinion, when it comes to the new iX and of course with the iX M70, and that's the seats. They are not only better when it comes to side bolster support. I mean, you can see them right here hugging me nicely, which makes driving a lot better than before. They were too flat before, and they were actually too short. I am 6'2", 6'3" tall, and every time I would put like my phone, let's say, in between my legs as a test, it would always fall down. So the seat has been extended by about 2 to 3 centimeters, so about 1 inch, but it makes actually a big difference if you're on the taller side of things. Unfortunately, you're still not able to adjust the thigh support, so there is a bit of a compromise there, but it's better than nothing. The overall shape of the seat has not changed. It's exactly the same as before. It's really just the addition of the side bolster support, and the angle of the actual seat, it's a little bit more upwards, and essentially that's what helps with any items sliding down. These seats are optional for base models. You are getting them standard in the M70. So if you're going for the base seats, you're gonna get the same seats as before. Another small update that I mentioned in my previous iX video, it's this cutout in the back. A lot of people on the shorter side would bang their head in that cutout, so right now it's a little bit smaller than before. So that's a both visual and a functional upgrade on those seats. As you can see, they're quite cool looking. This one, it's got this really nice combination of like suede type of material and this fabric right there, perforated, and of course you get this beautiful M stripes. Now let me pull over and let's take a look at the exterior design and see what has changed on the iX M7. As you can see, a little bit different than the M60, and that starts with the kidney grille. Same size, same shape as before. The biggest change is really the horizontal slats right there, and then of course the illuminated kidney grille. The headlights have been redesigned. They tend to mimic the upcoming Neue Klasse design, so you can see this vertical LEDs in there. Gives the car a more techy look, more digital look than before. You have the M Sport Pro package on this car, so very aggressive front end. You can see the split in the middle, similar to what you see today in other BMWs as well. Massive air curtains and ducts. This is the frozen deep gray color. You can see it right here. If you look on the side, really no changes there. You do have the large 22-inch wheels and tires with the red calipers. You can spec the car up to 23 inches in size. The red calipers are specific to the i7 M70. If you go to the back, you will notice a different rear bumper. So that has changed. The taillights stay the same though. Absolutely no change there. One other thing you might have noticed, the reflectors are right now vertical. They used to be horizontal. So that's something that you will notice on the car. Of course, BMW likes to do that because it emphasizes the width of the car. It makes the car look a little bit bigger in the rear. Now let's get behind the wheel and continue our drive. All right, so let's talk about highway driving. Again, the goal is really to test how comfortable the car is compared to the outgoing iX M60. As I mentioned a little bit earlier today, the comfort mode, it's softer than on the M60, and of course the sport mode, it's a little bit more aggressive, as I've already mentioned, and you might have seen in the footage as well. So highway driving, cruising right now, of course you can activate all the driving assistant features. So if you go to I/O, you can set up assistant driving basically, and you can drive hands-free. If you're in the US, of course, you can use the highway assistant, which works basically unlimited up to certain speeds. It doesn't work here in Spain, but of course you can use this in Germany as well. You're getting right now the level 2 mode, not the 2 plus, where basically every 10 seconds or so you have to take control of the steering wheel. As you can see, right now the car is steering by itself. In a few seconds it's going to prompt me to take over the steering. So once again, the highway assistant, it's not always available in all the countries, or the level 2 plus. Ride quality, it's extremely good. It is very comfortable. It's a little bit bouncier compared to the iX X60 or the iX 45. I mean, this is the M Performance model, so of course you're gonna get a little bit more sportiness in that. Like I've said it before, the iX, it's really the 7 Series of SUVs. In my opinion, it rides a lot better than the X5 or than the X7. All right, so let's do a sound test as well. So I'm gonna fire up the sound meter that I usually use. It's actually pretty good. I'm gonna shut up for a second. I'm gonna go around 70 kilometers per hour, so that way you can hear the cabin noise. So you can see right here, 57 decibels, which is extremely quiet. So you have an idea of how wonderful this car is for long distance driving. The car is also equipped with 22-inch wheels, and of course that always has an impact on the sound levels inside the cabin. But overall, like I said, it is extremely quiet. The seats, even when you're not pushing the car hard like I've done it a little bit earlier today, they are very comfortable, very supportive right now. I can feel them on the sides. I mean, there is so much bolster support right now compared to what we had before, which was more of a bus seat, I would call it. But this one feels wonderful. You got a nice massaging feature in them as well. So it's a joy driving the iX, especially when you're in traffic. Brake regen, I always love to use the B mode when I'm on the highway, especially when there is traffic, because I can recover some of the energy. Nothing has changed there, as I mentioned a little bit earlier today. You have the same brake regen as in the outgoing iX. Even though I've had an iX M60 for about 9 months, the driving conditions were completely different. I was in Chicago versus here in Spain, where the roads are quite nice. So I won't be able to give you a fair assessment on the ride quality compared to that car, but I guess maybe it's a placebo effect right now, but it does feel to be more comfortable in the comfort mode, and definitely sportier when you go to the upper settings of the car. Let's take a look at the efficiency of the car. So I started with 100% battery charge. It was showing me over 500 kilometers. And as you can see, I've traveled 2 hours and 36 minutes, about 90 kilometers, 11.4 kilowatts hour. And you can see right there, 24.7 kilowatts hour per 100 kilometers. Right now, it's showing 77% left on the battery and about 414 kilometers of range. Some of you had some specific questions when it comes to the iX facelift, so I was trying to get some answers. So let's start with this one. Were there any modifications made to the brake pedal arm to help correct the foot on arm concern that some of us have? I guess some people with large shoes find their toes getting caught on the arm of the brake pedal. So I wear size 12, 13 US, which is 46, 47 European. Honestly, I've never had that issue before. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. So of course I had to ask the question, and I was told that there are no changes when it comes to the arm on the pedal. The only difference is that in the M70, you are getting a different design on the actual pedals, but there are no other hardware changes. So definitely you're getting the same arm as before. Next one, is the glass roof more transparent when in clear mode? I was told yes. By how much? I'm not sure. At the same time, I was told that this change actually came in the past, so it's not something really new to the facelifted model. Next question, can you confirm that the tow hitch will not be powered? Well, it depends on the market. So if you're looking at the European market, you will get an electric powered tow hitch, of course, just like on all the other BMWs. But when it comes to the US spec models, you will not. You will have a fixed tow. And of course, that's still nice to have because the previous iX did not have it. If you've been following my journey with the iX M60 on social media, on YouTube, or on the website, you might know by now that I am a huge fan of the BMW iX. I was never bothered by the design of the car. I felt it was a little bit obnoxious, but honestly, once you go inside the iX, you will fall in love with this car. The design, it's so minimal inside, so smartly done. Everything is packaged properly. The dashboard is pushed forward. You have a lot of space in the front, in the back, additional space on the bottom. Of course, with the caveat that this floating thing still bothers me a little bit. So how much better is it compared to the iX M60? When it comes to the ride quality, once again, sport mode, more aggressive, so if you want to have fun with the car, absolutely that's the right mode for you. But if you're driving in city center like right now and you want to have a more comfortable drive, especially if you're traveling with kids and family, the comfort mode, it is softer than before, and that's a nice addition to the car. You will have to go with the cars back to back to really tell the differences. Of course, they're not major, they're really smaller updates, but overall, it does feel like comfort mode will please a lot of the previous M60 customers. I think most of you will find joy in these new seats, in the new steering wheel, which is really not new. I guess you could have ordered this one already in the current iX, I guess starting last summer or something like that. Speaking of features, I guess in some markets, I'm not sure if the US, they removed the Bowers & Wilkins because they wanted to bring the price down a little bit. The iX M70 is priced at $112,675. Some of you might be still struggling with the decision between an iX60 and iX M70, and that's fair, especially because there is about a $12,000 difference in between the two. But honestly, if money no object, I would absolutely pick the M70 because compared to the M60, they fixed the suspension in many ways. You're getting that more comfortable suspension. So the trade-off, it's a lot lower than before when it comes to the ride quality. Of course, the 60 will still be more comfortable in the comfort mode. Now, if you're looking to have that MDNA infused in your iX, then the M70 will satisfy that craving. Luckily, if money is an issue, then you can go now for the iX xDrive 45, which is offered in the US as the base model. So thank you BMW for refining this great electric SUV, but more importantly, thank you for listening to our feedback and finally giving us some proper M Sport seats. Who knew the seats could be the most exciting thing in a new car?